for a very low sort of upfront cash fee, our clients, our startups will have a brand new website, and after 6 to 9 months, they will also have a website that's ranking and generating them business.
So the most requested service is SEO?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Let's talk about it. It clearly can be a jungle, right? For somebody that doesn't know anything about it. Many people get lost in it, and so they seek for help.
Yeah.
So what's the most common mistake that you see people doing when approaching SEO or when trying to deal with SEO?
Honestly, SEO is so, because people realize how important it's going to be to their business, it frightens them a little bit. And as you say, it's a jungle, it's a minefield that people do get stung a lot if they choose to outsource their SEO work. What I would say to people who are worried is that Google doesn't expect you to go and learn the rules. Google only wants one thing, and it's very straightforward, and they only want to show a quality result for their users. Because if their users don't get a quality result, if it isn't a correct result to their query, they might go to Yahoo or Bing, and they lose that user. So you need to not be afraid of SEO. Common mistakes is hiring a cheap agency who promise the world. They will then go and do spammy works, mainly spammy link building, to convince Google that you're of a higher quality than you are. What then happens is your domain is damaged, and then worst case scenario, Google actually removes your domain from their index. You get de-indexed, or more common, you get penalized with ranking decreases. And that is a real problem, because then you have to go through the cleanup process of that domain. Or you just think, gosh, I need to start again, and you start on a brand new domain. So don't do that. Just bear in mind this idea of quality.
About the Google updates. Now, how do they influence or impact your work, and what's the impact that has on people that actually deal with SEO in the first place?
Okay, so Google updates, just to kind of get that straight. One of the common misconceptions in this industry is that Google keeps moving the goalposts. They don't. Their goalposts have never ever moved. What is getting better is their ability to catch people who are cheating. Now, the most famous, well, certainly in the last sort of 5 years, the most famous Google updates have been Panda and Penguin. They have been devastating for some businesses who were relying on what was effective SEO in the past. Google then sort of said, well, actually, the way you've been ranking your websites, we don't think equates to quality, and they get knocked down the rankings. Go Up turned up just after Panda and Penguin. So we were doing our own SEO as our own kind of marketing strategy in the early days to the rule book. So we had made no mistakes. Our phone then started ringing with people whose websites had suffered penalties. Yeah. And we found that actually one of our biggest jobs early on was helping these people to actually clean up their domains.
Rather than building up.
Yeah. And actually what we did with a lot of them was their domains were so damaged in the eyes of Google that we had no option but to advise them to move to a new domain and start again. And actually results were much quicker coming when we would start from fresh.
Usually startups need on different levels, potentially many of the services, if not all of the services that you are offering. In most cases, they lack the money, of course, for outsourcing these sort of things. So how do you advise them to get a hold of the problem? A good way of finding a good deal with a good agency and starting doing it themselves as well.
Okay, so the first thing that we say to startups, obviously cash is an issue with startups, and we know that. But we have positioned ourselves as helpers of startups, although we do work with some bigger firms. What we advise is for them to do whatever they can at home, or not at home, in their own office space, and we will do the legwork. We will do the sort of technical legwork. Things like social media management. The only people that can do a good social media campaign are the people who own the businesses. No one else can tell the story. No one else can sort of pass that word of, that tone of voice. What people like us can do is kind of take a little bit of the legwork away, so we can make sure that things are going up on your Facebook or your Twitter profiles.
Sort of monitoring.
We can monitor and manage, but really the only people who are going to be able to make something really, really good happen and give the real time and the real thought are the actual business owners. So social media, it's a different subject, social media's involvement with search engine optimization. It is becoming more important. But social media, we would advise to be done at your own pace. You need to start considering other factors. If you need your website ranking quickly, you need to understand that SEO, it takes a long time. We actually advise our clients it's anywhere between 6 and 12 months. It can be a lot quicker. It can take a lot longer. It depends on the competitiveness of your industry. So you need to work out how you can quickly get leads and business. PPC, or AdWords, is a good way to do that. It's very expensive, relatively speaking. Your cost per lead will work out a lot more than it does through organic rankings. But it's a good way to kind of test your website. You can see how people are reacting to your main service pages. Are people clicking on the form? So PPC is a good way to do that.
How do you learn SEO? I mean, I'm home. I have my own startup, and I have to deal with it. I just have to. So do I buy books? Do I just, if I don't have the money, say to go to an agency? How do I learn it? Where do I go? Tutorials online?
I will tell you a secret, and that is just before we founded GoUp, we bought a book.
That's it.
Called The Art of SEO. Yeah. Now, whenever a client asks us a question and we aren't quite sure of the answer to it, we will still consult this book. Now, I mean, we bought the edition, which is now sort of 4 years old, so there'll be better ones. It's written by a guy called Rand Fishkin, who's in charge of Moz.com, which is a huge SEO organization. So the first thing I'll do is recommend buying that book. The next thing is Twitter. That is our next major source of information. You follow Matt Cutts straight away. He is in charge of web spam at Google. He is the guy that everyone in the SEO industry around the world listens to everything that he says. If he says one day that using guest posting to get links to your website is no longer going to be effective, that's that. We know that he's actually done whatever, tweaked the algorithm, and that's going to be true. So you listen to what he says. There are plenty of good sort of 10 things to consider when you start your website. And if I could even plug our own SEO how-to guide on the GoUp website, we have written both a sort of basic walkthrough guide and an in-depth guide as to how to do it. So, but that's all well and good. You think that you need to know how SEO works. Going back to my point earlier, though, of Google doesn't expect you to read these books, okay? All Google wants is to give a quality result to their users. So my tips now would be just 3 things to remember. One is to make sure that your website is built well and make sure it looks good. Make sure there is content, actual words on the website, because Google can't yet see images. It has to read in order to know what is on a website. So make sure your words are on there. So that's number 1. Number 2 is link building. So this is the phrase that everyone is scared of, but ultimately it's the reason Google is the powerhouse it is today. Google was not the first search engine. The reason it came along and was so successful was because they said that, a hairdressers in London shouldn't rank on Google for hairdressers London just because they repeat that phrase the most number of times on their website, a la Alta Vista, Netscape Navigator, which were keyword engines. Google said no. That hairdressers needs to be linked to from other sort of hairdressing governing bodies, if there is such a thing. So these links are the most important thing. Now, don't force these links. All you need to do is tell a story. You consider it more a process of online PR. Get in touch with bloggers, tell them a story, maybe offer their readers something that you can give away in exchange for, maybe writing a review about your business. start getting those links to your website. That is going to be really, really key. So that's the second point. The third point is making sure that your website is constantly updated with new content. If every time Google crawls your website, nothing's changed, Google begins to think that website is now no longer a project for someone, and you need to be offering their users a really good experience. So to do that, you keep it updated with really, really good content.
One last thing, how do you recognize a good agency, SEO agency, from a bad one? Now there's some bias in this, clearly.